I'm here outside a makeshift camp where a group of more than 300 protesters have settled for the past 2 days. They've come from across Australia and overseas to be here for the 5-day event. Now, just to give you some bearings, the Olympic Dam mine gate is about 2 kilometres to the north, and the protesters have been marching to the gate for the past 2 days, or in yesterday's case, attempting to march to the gate. Now, I'm joined here by Nectaria Callan, who's a protest organiser. Good morning, Nectaria.
Morning, Kim.
Nectaria, can you tell me what the message is that protesters want to get across to BHP and the rest of the country?
The message is that there are massive environmental impacts associated with the expansion of the Olympic Dam mine. There are also concerns about the current mine, but of course the expansion, given that it will make it the largest mine in the world, obviously magnifies the local environmental impacts. There are also international concerns. This is the beginning of the nuclear fuel cycle. Once uranium is out on the market, there are connections with the proliferation of nuclear weapons. There are concerns about the risks of nuclear energy, as we've seen with Fukushima. And also there are concerns about the long-term storage of radioactive waste. At this stage, there's no long-term facility anywhere in the world to store this material.
Now, on Saturday, we saw quite a colourful and elaborate march. The protesters marched the 2-kilometre road all the way to the gates of Olympic Dam and put up banners on the gates. But yesterday, they tried to repeat the same march, but it ended up as a bit of a standoff with police that lasted for 3 hours. Nectaria, can you tell me why protesters decided to call off the march in the end?
Sure. We had the option of walking to the gates without the lizard, the sculptured lizard car, which is a symbol of the Lizard Dreamtime story, which is the narrative of this event. We weren't allowed to take it to the gates. We had been told that we couldn't drive on the road, but we were pushing the car, so we felt that the police were being quite unreasonable. And also they were sending us officers that didn't have the power to actually negotiate this further. So we decided to leave it and continue negotiations, which were happening last night and will continue today, to perhaps try and get the car to the gates today.
Was the back down by protesters a win for police?
We're not looking at it as a win. We're trying not to look at this as a battle between us and the police. That's not really the issue. We are planning to continue negotiations and we will be returning to the gates. And for us, I guess the car was just a symbol of just another obstruction that the police have put up from before the event even started. So we are still aiming to try and get it to the gates, but we'll see how negotiations go this morning.
Oh, look, the state government's fine with people protesting and expressing their democratic views in a peaceful way. I mean, that's who we are as a community. But I think there's also an overwhelming amount of frustration about whether or not this mine will go ahead. South Australians are overwhelmingly supportive of the expansion of this mine. With one of the world's largest copper mines and uranium mines, and for good measure, the world's 4th largest gold mine and world's 5th largest silver mine. So in terms of our future prosperity, Olympic Dam is very, very important.
Do you take on board the concerns expressed by some protests about the safety of uranium? We all saw what happened at Fukushima in Japan. There are serious concerns about just where this uranium could end up.
Look, Australian uranium is handled in a very, very safe way. I mean, this mine's been operating for over 25 years with no reported incidents of any contamination or any leaks. Uranium and nuclear power is bringing equity to the world. I mean, we have a moral obligation to make sure that we allow people in India and China to have access to electricity. Without electricity, you can't have healthcare, you can't have education, you can't have people being lifted out of poverty. I think South Australia's role in all this is a very productive one. And in terms of the Indigenous engagement, it's been a very long-term Indigenous engagement program. The idea that local Indigenous groups are unhappy about this simply isn't true. It's been one of the most comprehensive Indigenous land use agreements ever signed in Australia's history.